The chemistry trap is one of the number one things I see trip people up when they're looking for secure, compatible, reciprocal love. And chemistry can feel really intense, right? And it can make us negotiate our own non-negotiables, be a little bit more loose with our boundaries and standards, making accommodations for people so they can stay in our lives, even if they're not quite up to the standard. So if you resonate with any of that, this video is for you. It's taken from a larger training called the Dating Reset. You can find details of that in the description if you want to dive in deeper. I'm Laura Forbes, author of Quit Dating Idiots, and I've lived these patterns myself and now spend time coaching women around the world to break out of these patterns that lead to unfulfilling, disappointing dynamics. If you've got any comments, drop them in the comments box below, and I hope you enjoy.
The first shift is from chemistry to compatibility, becoming unavailable for relationships that feel exciting but aren't aligned. Now, before you turn this off in a huff and go, Laura, I don't want a boring ass relationship where there's no chemistry. I hear you, but we'll get to this. We'll unpack it. It'll all make sense. But the chemistry trap is the number one thing that trips people up in dating. We've all been there with the insane chemistry, the connections that feel like they are a soulmate, only for them to turn into strangers a few months down the track, feeling seen on a whole new level. And before we go any further, it is important to say that this is not about saying goodbye to chemistry forever. This is about shifting from a chemistry first perspective to a compatibility first perspective. And again, sometimes the lines are blurred, right? So when I work with people, they're not necessarily thinking like, yeah, I throw compatibility out of the window when chemistry comes into play. But often in these subtle little ways, these sneaky little ways, that can be exactly what happens, right? So when we talk about chemistry, often we're talking about this like exciting spark, this flame of desire, right? Like the physical attraction, the mental connection, the excitement. It feels magnetic, it feels intense, rare connection. And when I coach clients on this, things that often come up are this mental stimulation, right? So again, if you're watching this, you probably, like many clients that I work with, are an intelligent person, right? Not just intelligent, but emotionally intelligent as well. And often it can feel like, there's this itch that you can't scratch on your own, right? Like, yes, you can go and have an exciting work life and deep friendship connections, but it's something about meeting a romantic partner on a level that can connect with you, that can feel quite rare. And when that comes along, it can feel amazing. And again, what comes up is sometimes, these people come in and they are meeting desires and needs that haven't been met for many years or that have never been met before. And that's why I hear things like, you never met anyone like this before. And I've experienced, this many times. I've even written about it in my book, Quit Dating Idiots. You'll see a little bit of that in chapter 3, I think it is, with my own version of this, right? The deep conversations, the little things they do that make you feel really seen and met. And that is quite a pull, right? Like can be even a bit addictive. But here's what's on the other side, right? So we have the exciting side of chemistry, but then we have less exciting side of chemistry, like the dark side, we might call it. This might look like, and again, it's a sliding scale, but you may have met someone who had the chemistry, but also had the hot and cold, like the emotional roller coaster. Like they came in really strong and it was amazing. And then all of a sudden they go cold and you're left reeling, trying to figure out how to get back to where you were. We can also have boundary testing. So this is where someone comes in hot, it's going really well. And then you notice like they're kind of testing my boundaries here, or something's sliding here and it doesn't feel comfortable, but I don't want to lose what we've got, or I don't want to upset the apple cart, so to speak. Love bombing can also be on the scene. Subtle manipulations come in. That's like the boundary testing, right? The future faking. So they're telling you everything you want to hear. Maybe they're speaking your love language, and this can lead to this emotional roller coaster effect. Sometimes we can feel so relieved that we finally met someone who matches what we've been looking for, that we kind of forget to do a little bit of our due diligence and to really make sure that someone is right for us and we're not sacrificing parts of ourselves to make it work. How it shows up is, your friends are like, can't you see the red flags? And you're like, what? No. We've all been there, or we've all had a friend and we've been that person to that friend as well, right? Like It works both ways. Now, the hidden trap when it comes to chemistry is this thought. If it feels this good, it must be right. And this is where the intense feelings trip people up. We unwittingly overlook whether this person is actually capable of building a healthy relationship and the life we want because we're so wrapped up in the moment, right? Chemistry is very much an in the moment, like here and now thing. And we focused on that more than, is this sustainable in the long term? Has this person got what it takes to be a compatible life partner? Or is it, more of a physical and mental attraction? Now, here's the thing as well with this cycle. What made me realize that this was a trap in my journey was when I was like, of all amazing chemistry that I've encountered, how come none of it's ever worked out? Right? Like, is that a little sign pointing somewhere? And the other thing that comes up here is this thing. So often early on in the relationship, like you might still have your head about you, right? And you're going into it and you're like, it feels great. I'm really excited. And I'm kind of, doing my due diligence and making sure we're a compatible match. But then something happens and all of a sudden it's like the fear of loss, right? So maybe they go a bit cold. Maybe you put it down to them being a bit busy with work, or they've got this trip that they were going on. So, it kind of makes sense and you kind of let it slide. But internally, already, the chain reaction has begun, right? Like this fear of loss, this like, how do I get it back to where it was, where it felt safe, right? Like where that felt like, yes, this is good. This meets my needs. This is safe here. And then we tip into not quite so safe territory. And this is like the slot machine effect, right? Like we've been investing our coins and we're like, we're due a win, right? So we know they're going to come back and we're just kind of waiting. And then when they do, we get that hit of dopamine again. And we're like, okay, crisis averted, everything's fine again. The fear of loss keeps us on our toes and it feels even more exciting. And before we know it, we're like chasing this dangly carrot, right? This big juicy carrot, before we've even figured out if that's the carrot that's right for us. So this analogy came from a coaching conversation I had a few weeks back with a client who was in this exact cycle. And she was laughing her head off because she's like, you know what? That's exactly how it feels. Like I kind of got distracted from the fact that I was still working out if he was actually compatible. And now all I'm thinking about is like how to get the carrot back and to get like the jackpot when there's that perceived loss or perceived loss of interest. And all of a sudden we feel like we've got to work harder to get it back. And again, this is not everyone, and this is where these shifts come in, right? Because you'll have friends and you're like, yeah, they would never. They'd just be like, okay, see you later. Right? If you're not going to be consistent and I'm not going to know where I stand, then off you jog, right? And it all depends on like how we're wired, right? If this is pushing our buttons from something that was years ago, whether that's how we were brought up in the family dynamic, whether it's an earlier relationship that set up these patterns of behavior and feelings, then, we all have our different hot buttons that can be pressed. So what's the cost, right, of ignoring incompatibilities? We've got wasted time, right, when inevitably it doesn't work out for one reason or another. We've got the erosion of self-trust when we start going off course, right, when we start going off piste from what we know and we start kind of negotiating our non-negotiables or staying too long when it already feels not right anymore, or we're trying to justify and buy more time. And we also have the reinforcing of limiting beliefs, like we saw earlier, how this can play into that as well, right? So in my book, I write about detours. And many clients come to me after years of chasing or entertaining chemistry. And I was the same. In my 20s, it's easy to assume that things are magically going to work out. So like when you're dating, you're having fun and there's hot chemistry, like you pursue it, right? And you take your chances and see what happens. But the cost isn't just heartbreak, because it's the time and energy we spend trying to make something work that, potentially was never aligned in the first place. So we spend all this energy trying to get someone to show up in the way that we need. And actually it's kind of sunk cost, because if they weren't really compatible in the first place, it's never going to lead to the happy relationship that you actually want, right? The fulfilling reciprocal relationship with someone who's available and can meet your needs and can show up. And again, we're going to cover more of this in different ways as we go through the different shifts. But for now, one of the real costs here is the disconnection from yourself and the delay to you actually getting to the other side of the bridge and the relationship that is right for you. And when I talk about detours, I talk about like, if you really had this dream holiday, right? And you were on your way to the airport and you had a flight to catch to get to this dream holiday that you've been dreaming about for years, would you stop off on the way to the airport to look at scenic routes, right? Or would you just be like, let me just get to that airport so I can get to my destination? And again, in your 20s, when you've got all the time in the world and you can catch another flight, go at your own pace, whatever. But there comes a time when you're like, you know what, I want this relationship. Like, I want my person, and I'm done with the detours. And often a lot of this chemistry falls into the detours bucket, right? And I always say to my clients, you're free to take a detour. I'm never going to stop you, but you have to weigh up the cost. Is the detour worth the delay? So how do we actually shift this? The shift happens when you switch the priority of chemistry, right? So we go compatibility first, because, as you may know by now, no amount of chemistry can make up for a lack of true compatibility, right? So know your non-negotiables. And we've got two camps for compatibility, right? You might be thinking, yeah, but Laura, like, he's more compatible than anyone I've ever known. He sees me, he does this for me. So we've got compatibility with you as a person and what you value and are interested in. But we've also got the compatibility with the relationship you desire. And here's what pulls people off course, because we get so hooked into, yes, but so compatible with me and what I desire, that we kind of turn away from, are they available? Are they consistent? Are they reliable? Are they going to be by your side on your worst day? Are you going to want them by your side on your worst day? Some people just don't have the capacity or the minerals for that kind of stuff. And that is life, right? You want someone who's going to be able to navigate life with you. And that requires them to be willing to show up, to have conversations, to create positive change. And it requires them to be available. So if we don't have those, they're incompatible with the relationship you desire. We can spend years trying to justify that and work around that, or we can go, okay, cool, walk away. And again, they always have the option to rise to meet you, right? But what you're not going to do is lower yourself, your standards, your expectations, or adjust your timeline to accommodate them. So that is the shift. I want you to pause and notice here and see how this plays out in your life, or how it currently plays out, or how it's played out in the past. When you feel chemistry with someone, what happens to your standards? Do you become more likely to overlook red flags or the subtle tells and explain away concerns or negotiate your non-negotiables? No judgment, we're just noticing. Notice what stories come up when you imagine walking away from someone that you're strongly attracted to, or that you have amazing chemistry with, or that you feel really compatible with, but they're not compatible with being available for a secure, committed relationship. What feelings and stories come up for you when you imagine turning away from that? What are you afraid might happen if you were to walk away? And all these things are like often what's beneath the surface, right? They might have popped up as fleeting thoughts here and there, but when we really pause and notice, we give that chance to come to the surface and look at it objectively, right? Like I said, no judgment, just curiosity. Interesting. Where does that story come from? Interesting that I feel that way, right? And can you remember a time when attraction caused you to ignore or override something you already knew? And how did that play out for you? Did it cost you? What did it cost you? Was it worth the cost? Just pause and notice questions, maybe write them down. Pause this video if you need a moment to write out your answers and come back. So, prioritize asking yourself, is this person compatible with the life I want for myself, right? So not just are they compatible with me as a person, but are they compatible with that vision and the life that I desire? Or, when I was creating these slides, what came to mind was that quote, let go or be dragged, right? If they're not, you've got to let go, or you're going to get dragged. So, compatibility check. Here are some questions that you can use as an anchor and, like a checkpoint as you're dating someone. So, is this person compatible with my non-negotiables? Are they emotionally available? Are they physically available? Because if you've got a no to any of those three, immediately out. And again, some of these questions you can answer, yes or no. Some you may need a little longer and more information to be able to answer yes or no, but we're going for yes or no answers here, right? Does this person have the emotional intelligence, capacity, and wherewithal to meet my emotional needs? Is this person willing and able to communicate with me to resolve issues as and when they arise? Is this person displaying any red flags that I'm pretending not to notice? Does choosing this person also feel like I'm choosing what is best for myself? Do I feel confident that this person is good for me and compatible on all the levels I have identified as important to me? That's a good start to a compatibility check. Remember, compatibility first.